At my graduation, my family ghosted me for my twins' first art class, so I cut ties, built a vegan tech empire, and refused to be their wallet. Revenge for good. I went 10 years without hearing a word from my family after they made it very clear where I stood on their priority list. Then, out of nowhere, I got contacted about my dad's condition. I figured maybe there was a shred of sincerity in all this. Spoiler, there wasn't. What started as a hospital visit turned into something way more twisted, and by the end of it, I realized I wasn't back for closure. I was back to confirm why I left in the first place. I'm 31 male, and I should have seen it coming early on. Growing up, everything revolved around my twin sister, Rebecca, 31, female. Like she was the center of gravity in the house and the rest of us were just background noise. I wasn't mistreated in obvious ways, I was just invisible. It didn't matter what I did, grades, awards, showing up, none of it registered. If Rebecca sneezed, the whole house paused. If I broke a bone, it was an inconvenience. I'd ace every exam, win track meets, get trophies for things she couldn't even pronounce, and it still wasn't enough. But Rebecca? She'd bring home a crayon, drawing of a blob, and my parents would act like she'd painted the Sistine Chapel. "Oh wow, Rebecca, you're so creative, honey." They'd hang that garbage on the fridge like it was up for auction at Sotheby's. Meanwhile, I was over here solving algebra 2 years early and getting told not to show off. My parents treated me like I was the NPC that people always skip talking to in Skyrim or Dark Souls. They weren't just biased, they were blatantly indifferent to anything I did. When I got into a top business school, they barely reacted. I remember telling them the news and my dad literally grunted, didn't even look up from the TV. My mom said something like, "Well, good, that's what you're supposed to do. No, we're proud of you. No dinner celebration, just a casual expectation that I should keep excelling silently while Rebecca got a parade for waking up before noon." Rebecca didn't even try. Man, she was lazy, bratty, and so damn smug about it. She'd constantly walk around acting like she was the second coming of Picasso, even though her art looked like a sneeze on paper. No direction, no ambition. She said she was going to take a year off after high school to figure herself out. That turned into 3 years of doing nothing except shopping and treating my parents' house like a hotel. They were cool with it too. She'd come downstairs at 2 p.m. wearing pajamas, and my mom would still ask if she wanted her eggs soft or scrambled. Like, what? Meanwhile, I was busting my ass with part-time jobs and assignments just to stay afloat at school. I needed help covering tuition, not a full ride or anything, just a little help. And they hit me with the classic, "You're an adult now. You need to learn responsibility." Mind you, they were still buying Rebecca new iPads every year and paying for pottery classes she never even attended. But I was entitled for asking for help with college tuition. So I stopped expecting anything from them. I didn't call, didn't text. I'd come home on holidays and just go through the motions. They didn't ask about my life, and I didn't offer. It was just easier that way. I learned quick that the less I said, the less I'd get disappointed. But still, I thought maybe, just maybe, when graduation rolled around they'd show up for that one day. I sent invites months in advance, called them, even followed up with emails, no response. I told myself they were busy, maybe planning something, maybe they'd surprise me, and just as you're probably thinking, they didn't. Graduation day came. I looked like an idiot scanning the crowd for familiar faces. Everyone had their families waving at them, taking pictures, cheering like lunatics, and me, I walked that stage alone, the seat I saved for them empty. Like me being born was some kind of accident they just had to live with. I found out later, after the ceremony from some cousin, that they didn't come because it was Rebecca's first day of art class. Yeah, community college, local, not even a real campus, just some annex building next to a donut shop. But apparently she was nervous, so they couldn't leave her alone. At 21 years old, that's when it clicked. It had nothing to do with nerves or schedules, it was just them being them. They never saw me, not really. I was just the one who kept going so they didn't have to worry. But Rebecca, she was their little project, their precious disaster that always needed fixing. So I walked back to my apartment after graduation, took off the cap and gown, sat on the floor and just stared at the wall for a while. Not sad, not mad, just done. Like something switched off inside. I blocked their numbers, deleted them from everything, even took down the one framed photo I had with them from the hallway. It was time. I didn't need people who couldn't even bother to show up. I wasn't going to keep pretending they cared. If anything, not having them around made more sense than dragging around this fake idea of family. As for Rebecca, I blocked her too. She never texted or called anyway unless she needed something, and I sure as hell wasn't going to let her ask for favors now that I was actually building a life. She could keep her third failed sketchbook business, or whatever she was pretending to do. That was it for me. The chapter was closed and I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Once I cut them off, I didn't waste time sitting in the dark listening to sad playlists or any of that dramatic crap. I had bills. I had student loans screaming at me like they were trying to collect souls, and no magical safety net from loving parents who bailed the second it was time to show up. First thing I did was get a job, junior developer at a scrappy little tech company. A buddy from boot camp hooked me up with the place. It was barely holding together. Legacy code, missing documentation, half the team treated Git like Dropbox, but it paid. It wasn't glamorous, but I knew if I stuck with it and outworked everyone else, I'd get somewhere. I kept my head down and my headphones on, spent late nights pushing fixes no one asked for, watched crash logs until my eyes bled, and built tools just to make my own work easier. I became the guy who gets things done, which in dev teams is basically like holding the Infinity Gauntlet. A year later, I leveled up, got into a mid-sized cybersecurity firm, real pay, real team, and finally real projects I could sink my teeth into. I focused on back-end systems and secure integrations, stuff most devs avoided. I liked it, quiet, structured, and actually useful. Moved out of that disaster of a shared apartment. Got my own place, one bedroom, clean, strong Wi-Fi, no weird roommates walking around half naked, talking to their crypto portfolios. I set up a full dev rig, dual monitors, standing desk, everything. My space finally felt like mine. And somewhere along the way, I started getting into sustainable tech, especially in the vegan product space. I'm not vegan, not even close, but I was obsessed with the data, product demand, consumer behavior, trend forecasting. There was real fire there. So I started coding personal tools to analyze those markets. Spent weekends tracking e-commerce patterns, building out a simple app to spot gaps in supply chains and product categories. Eventually, I realized I could take this idea and build something real, not a hobby, a company. I looped in a couple of friends. One had marketing chops, the other was a former coworker who wanted to invest. We agreed. I'd prep everything in the background, and once I had a solid beta and 2 investors locked, I'd leave my job and go full throttle. I was almost there. The product made sense, the numbers were solid, I had runway saved, no more sleepless nights about rent, and 0 strings attached. The only time I even thought about my family anymore was when people asked about holidays. I'd just say, yeah, I don't do family stuff, and keep moving. Every now and then, though, word got back to me, usually through old classmates or mutuals, that Rebecca was still fumbling through life like a dropped phone. She apparently tried starting an art commission business, got flamed on social media for tracing someone else's work, and rage quit. Last I heard, she had a YouTube channel with 3 videos and 20 views, one of which was her explaining why capitalism was the reason she couldn't hold down a job. It was embarrassing, honestly. Secondhand cringe levels of bad. And I'll admit, hearing about it didn't make me sad. It just confirmed everything I already knew. Some people get handed everything and still find a way to screw it up. Others get nothing and build their own table. I knew which side I was on. I was finally living on my own terms. No guilt, no pretending, just me building something that was actually mine. Until that message came through. 10 years of silence. Not a word, not even a typo. Then suddenly, like it was no big deal, Dad has cancer and isn't doing well. You should come back home. That was it. No, how are you? No apology. Just a casual heads up like I'd been on vacation instead of cut out of their lives completely. Still, I went. Walking into that hospital after 10 years felt like time traveling into a bad memory. Same town, same faces, but everything felt smaller, colder, like the world had moved on without cleaning up after itself. I wasn't here to cry over anyone. I wasn't here to beg for hugs or reconnect. I came because they said my dad was dying. And I'm not the kind of guy who ignores that, no matter how messy the past is. You don't get to choose your parents, but you do get to choose what kind of man you want to be. I just wanted to look him in the eye one last time, on my terms. The second I walked off the elevator, I saw her, my mom. She stood up like she couldn't believe I was real, hands out like she was debating whether to hug me or slap me. "Oh my God," she breathed. "You actually came." I didn't say anything, just stood there watching her. She reached out and pulled me into a hug before I could react. I stayed still. She smelled like the same floral detergent she used when we were kids, which was weirdly the only familiar thing that didn't annoy me. "You've grown up so much," she said, stepping back with a forced smile. "You filled out. Must be eating well, huh?" I gave a small nod, just trying to keep it civil. But then, barely 2 seconds later, she hit me with it. No warm-up, no easing into it. "You know," she said sweetly, "Rebecca's been having a rough time, and with everything going on, your father's hospital bills, the house repairs, all of it, it's been overwhelming. If you could just help a little, we'd be so grateful. Blinked, just stared at her. That's the first thing you're asking me? I said. Not how are you? Not must have been hard doing everything alone for 10 years, just straight to asking for money. The fake smile slid right off her face. Well, we raised you, she snapped, voice rising fast. You act like you were some orphan. You lived under our roof, ate our food, and now that we need help, you suddenly don't owe us anything. I kept my tone calm, colder than I thought I could manage. You raised me the way someone keeps a spare tire in the trunk. Only looked at me when the golden one wasn't working. She scoffed and crossed her arms like I was being dramatic. But I didn't let up. I'll help with the medical bills, I said flatly. That's it. I'm not paying for Rebecca's latest meltdown or whatever dream she abandoned this month. She's your sister, she hissed. She's your responsibility. She's 31 and still getting babied like she's in preschool. That's not my problem. Her face was somewhere between insulted and stunned, like it had never crossed her mind that I might actually say no. You think you're better than us now? She muttered. Just because you make some money coding? No, I said. I know I'm better than the guy you all thought I was, the one you ignored, the one you left behind without a second thought. That shut her up for a second. She looked like she wanted to argue more but didn't have the ammo. Probably expected me to show up broken, desperate, maybe even regretful. Instead, she got someone who didn't flinch when she raised her voice and didn't care what guilt trip she had ready. I walked past her and opened the door to my dad's hospital room. And there he was. The man who once couldn't be bothered to return a graduation call, now barely able to lift his head. Tubes, wires, machines. He looked more machine than man at that point. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken. I paused for a second. It was the first time I'd seen him look human, not angry, not distant, just worn down. His eyes met mine. He blinked like he wasn't sure I was real. You came? He whispered. Yeah, I said. He tried to sit up a bit but didn't have the strength. I moved to the chair near the window. The air was heavy, sterile. Everything about the room felt like a waiting area for death. I sat down slowly, keeping my back straight. I didn't lean in, didn't offer my hand. I just watched him. You look healthy, he rasped. I am. He gave a weak nod like that was all he needed to hear. Then we just sat there for a bit. Silence. Not the comfortable kind. The loaded, slow-burning kind where neither of us knew how to start or what to pretend to care about. I glanced toward the corner of the room. Rebecca was there, curled up in a chair, pretending to scroll on her phone. Her nails were freshly done, outfit clean and new. She still looked like someone who hadn't earned a single thing she had. She didn't look up at me once. Dad cleared his throat. I know it's been a long time. It has. Another pause. The monitor beeped steadily. That was the only consistent rhythm in the room. I was wrong, he said finally, about a lot of things. I didn't say anything. Just let him say it. I wasn't fair to you. To any of it. Still silent on my end. I wanted to fix that, he added, even if it's too late. I looked him straight in the eye. For the first time ever, he didn't look back with judgment or boredom or disappointment, just tired eyes like he finally saw the version of me I had to build without him. You want to fix it now? I said. Not a question, just a statement. He gave a slow nod. His eyelids were drooping a little. He looked like talking took everything out of him. I want peace in the family before I go, he murmured. That one got me, not in a soft, emotional way, just in a really kind of way. I looked out the window, let the words float there. Maybe later, I said. You should rest. Because if I was going to have that talk, it wouldn't be rushed, and it wouldn't be on their terms. They called me back like I was a loose end they forgot to tie up, but I wasn't here to tie anything. I was here to see for myself that I didn't need them anymore, and I saw it loud and clear. I went back the next day, not because I missed anyone, not because I wanted to make things right. I just wanted to see how deep this rabbit hole went. The vibe yesterday was too carefully packaged. I'd been around these people long enough to know when something was being staged. They didn't call me after 10 years just for hugs and sad smiles. There was something else, and today I'd find out what. Rebecca wasn't there, thank God, just my parents. My mom sat beside the hospital bed pretending to flip through a magazine, and my dad looked worse than he did the day before. His face had that waxy gray look that you only ever see on people who've been slowly dying for a while. His eyes followed me when I walked in, like he was checking if I'd really shown up again or if I was just some morphine hallucination. I didn't say much, just nodded and sat down in the chair by the window. The air in the room was heavy, that kind of sticky, medicated quiet that makes your skin itch. You could hear every beep, every soft hiss of oxygen, every shuffle of paper like it was being played through speakers. There were a few minutes of useless talk. My mom asked if I'd eaten. I said, yeah. My dad said he was tired but better than the day before. All filler. No one in that room believed a word of it. Then the mood shifted. My mom started in again, voice soft, measured, like she was pitching a charity case to a boardroom. Rebecca's been having a rough time, she said, folding her hands in her lap like she was on a talk show. She's really trying, but she hasn't had it easy. The world's not very kind to people like her. Or people like her. That was rich. I didn't say anything. Just let her talk. She explained that Rebecca had ideas. Big ones. That she wanted to start something creative, a business, maybe something small but passionate, authentic to who she is. That's the phrase she used. It almost made me roll my eyes. Then came the kicker. They wanted me to help, not just financially. No, they wanted me to mentor her, bring her in, give her guidance, structure, maybe even a position in the business I was building. I sat there completely still. Not surprised, not angry, just watching the same predictable movie I'd seen my whole life. They dressed it up like it was about family, like it was my duty as her brother, like my success had created some kind of moral debt I was now expected to pay off in full. And then came the real hammer. My dad turned to me, eyes a little foggy, and said, I'm not going to be around much longer, you know that. And before I go, I need to know your mother and sister will be okay. He said it like it was reasonable, like I was the selfish one if I didn't nod and agree on the spot. Then he leaned into the guilt full force. You're really going to throw your mother and sister in the streets after everything we did for you. It took me a second to register how shameless that was. This was the same man who just a day ago looked me in the eye and admitted he hadn't been fair, said he knew the way I was treated growing up wasn't right, said he had regrets. And now suddenly none of that mattered. Suddenly I was the bad guy again if I didn't sign up to be the solution to a problem I didn't cause. The past got wiped clean because now he had a dying wish, and that apparently gave him a blank check to rewrite everything. It was almost funny. Not the ha-ha kind, just the kind that makes you stare at the wall for a second like, are you serious right now? Because no, I wasn't going to throw them in the street. But also no, I wasn't going to hand Rebecca a job she didn't earn or let my mom guilt me into financing another one of her screw-ups, just because she never learned to say no to her golden child. They tried to spin it like this was unity, like it would be poetic, the twins finally working together, like we were some sitcom waiting for a reboot. But I knew better. This wasn't about bonding, it was about relief. They needed someone to take the pressure off, to absorb the mess and carry it forward so they could wash their hands of it and say, see, it all worked out. My mom stayed quiet after that, watching me, waiting. She expected some big emotional reaction, maybe tears or a dramatic sigh followed by, you're right, I'll take care of them. But all she got was silence. I stood up. As I said, I'll help with the hospital bills, I said. Medical stuff only. Nothing else. My mom flinched slightly. My dad looked disappointed, like I just failed some moral test. No yelling, no theatrics, just two people realizing their guilt trip didn't land. She needs support, my mom muttered, after a moment, not even looking at me now. She's had support her whole life, I said. From you, from him. She just never learned to stand on her own. Neither of them answered that. The machines kept beeping in the background. My dad turned his head to the side and closed his eyes like he was suddenly too tired to argue. My mom just stared at her hands. I walked to the door, paused, looked back one more time, not for closure, just to remind myself what it looked like. The room, the people, the old lies being recycled into new ones. I didn't slam the door, didn't make a speech. I just left. And in that moment, I wasn't their son anymore. I was their backup plan. Walking out the door, I knew she was coming. The second I left that room yesterday, I could feel it. That silence wasn't defeat, it was calculation. The guilt card didn't land, so now it was time to send in their closer, the favorite, the untouchable one, Rebecca. I didn't expect her to be subtle, and I wasn't wrong. She caught me just outside the hospital's cafeteria. I'd stepped away for 5 minutes to get some air and a coffee, and there she was, leaning against the wall like she was about to drop some life-changing advice. Fresh makeup, New sweater, holding her phone like she was in the middle of closing a brand deal. She hadn't even looked up when I walked past her yesterday, but today suddenly she was all smiles. "Hey, stranger," she said, like we were best friends who lost touch for a few weeks. I didn't say anything, just waited. She launched into it without hesitation. No warm-up, no pretense. "I'm really excited about the business idea," she said. "Mom told me you've been working on something in the vegan space. Super cool. I've been brainstorming some ideas, actually. Branding, aesthetic stuff. I have a mood board if you want to see it." Mood board. Jesus. She kept talking, clearly rehearsed. Said she'd already posted on her socials about starting a new chapter, hinted she'd been in talks for some collaborations. I don't know who she was talking to, but it wasn't me. Apparently she thought this whole thing was a done deal. She was pitching like she'd already been hired and just needed to finalize her parking spot. What made it worse was the way she talked to me, like she was humoring me, like I was the tech guy who could handle the boring stuff while she brought the vision. She said things like, "You've always been practical, but I can bring the emotional depth. And this could be our chance to finally be equals. You know, equals." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because of how completely she believed her own nonsense. I let her go on for a while. I wanted to hear all of it, every delusion, every little detail of this fantasy where she'd waltz into a business she didn't build and collect half the credit just because she shared my DNA. She even floated the idea of a launch party, said she could handle the creative side, the face of the brand type stuff, that I didn't need to worry about public-facing roles because, and I quote, "That's not really your strength anyway." That's when I cut in. "You done?" I asked. She blinked, caught off guard, like I'd interrupted something sacred. I took a slow sip of my coffee, then looked her dead in the eye. "You're not part of my business, Rebecca." The smile dropped. "Wait, what?" "You heard me. You're not involved. This isn't a family project." It never was. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "I don't think you understand," she said, tone changing fast. "This isn't just about me. This is about Dad, about what he wanted." I didn't even flinch. "What Dad wants is for someone to clean up the mess he let you become," I said. "And I'm not volunteering." Her jaw tightened. The sweetness vanished. That fake soft voice she walked in with dropped like a mask. "So that's it?" she snapped. "You're just going to leave us hanging after everything?" "Everything?" I repeated. "Like missing my graduation because you had an art class? Like getting told I was selfish for asking for help with tuition while you played around with hobbies for a decade?" She scoffed. "God, you're still holding on to that. You need therapy." I leaned in a little, voice calm. "No. What I need is distance, and I already have that. Now I'm just setting the boundary." "You think you're better than us now?" "I know I'm not worse." She stepped back, arms crossed, furious. "You're heartless," she said. "You think just because you have some money now, you can treat everyone like trash. I think because I built my life from nothing without any of you, I get to decide who I share it with. And it's not you." She didn't respond to that, just stood there, eyes narrowing like she was trying to burn a hole in me. I walked past her without saying another word. I heard her mutter something behind me, probably another insult, maybe a warning. I didn't care. She didn't think she was asking for a favor. She thought she was cashing in a birthright. And the look on her face when she realized I wasn't buying it? Worth every year of silence? A few days later, the silence was permanent. My father died at 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday. I know that because the hospital left a voicemail. They didn't even bother calling twice. Just one tired-sounding nurse saying it was peaceful. That's the word they always use. Peaceful. Like it makes any of it mean something. I didn't rush over. Didn't sit in the dark clutching old photos. I went back to sleep. When I showed up later that morning, the atmosphere in the hallway was off. Not heavy like grief usually is. No tension, no mourning, just movement, urgency. I could hear the low hum of conversation from inside the hospital room. Not crying, not whispering, just voices talking, discussing. I walked in expecting to see silence. Maybe some tears. Instead, I found my mother flipping through a folder. Hospital documents, bank statements, notes scribbled in pen. Rebecca was sitting in the chair beside the bed, which was now empty, stripped clean. No Dad, just two women completely dry-eyed, looking like they were in the middle of a tax audit. Neither of them looked up right away. I stared at the bare hospital bed, sheets folded, pillow gone, like he'd never even been there. My mom finally glanced up. "You're late," she said. "They already cleared the body about 2 hours ago. He signed the release forms in advance." Rebecca didn't even turn around. She was too busy typing something on her phone. probably crafting a vague "we lost a great man today" post for Instagram with a crying emoji and a link to her PayPal. "No one called me," I said. "I assumed you'd get the voicemail," my mom replied. Like that was an acceptable way to tell someone their father died. There wasn't a shred of sadness in the room, not a single flicker of emotion, just paperwork. "We have to talk about logistics," my mom continued. "The funeral, the house, the life insurance." I stood there processing. I should have known. I should have expected it. But seeing it, watching them shift from loss to logistics without even stopping to breathe, it hit different. "I was thinking," Rebecca finally said, turning toward me with a calm, practiced tone, "since you made it clear I won't be part of your business, it's only fair that I get my share from Dad's estate. I'm going to launch something of my own." She actually smiled after she said it, like this was just a normal thing to say minutes after your father's death. "What estate?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "The house, the savings, the insurance," she replied. "Mom and I talked about it. We figured you'd want to handle the executive role." "Of course, because I'm the responsible one, the stable one, the one they ignored for a decade but suddenly expect to wear a suit and manage the crumbs they think they're entitled to." "We need access to some of it soon," my mom added. "There are funeral costs to cover, and Rebecca has business-related things she needs to jumpstart before she loses momentum." I looked at both of them. No tears, no reflection, just strategy. "He's been dead for 6 hours, I said. Rebecca shrugged. "And life goes on." "What, you want us to sit around in black veils crying in the dark?" I didn't answer. I was still staring at the empty bed, not because I missed him, but because he died exactly like he lived, quietly stepping out while someone else handled the mess. They kept talking. Budget numbers, what to sell, what to keep. My mom mentioned converting part of the house into an Airbnb to keep income flowing. Rebecca wanted to liquidate some assets quickly so she could lease a workspace downtown. I'd heard enough. "You know he barely had anything left, right?" I said finally. "The house isn't paid off, the insurance won't stretch, and whatever's left is going toward the hospital." My mom blinked. Rebecca frowned. "That can't be right," she said. "He said he had money saved." "He had money," I corrected. "Then he co-signed your loan, remember? For that digital art co-op you abandoned after 3 months?" Rebecca's face froze. She looked at my mom, then back at me. "That wasn't that much. It was enough to tank his credit. He never bounced back, and you never paid him back." My mom's mouth tightened. "You're twisting this." "No," I said calmly. "I'm just done lying about it." The room got quiet for the first time. I took a step forward. "You brought me here to watch him die, to help with the hospital bills. And maybe, you thought you could guilt me into taking care of everything else too." My mom stood. "That's not true." "Really?" I snapped. "Then why was Rebecca already talking about her share of the estate before the body was even cold? Why are you planning real estate conversions like this is a flipping project instead of a funeral?" "We're just trying to survive," she said. "We're not like you. We don't have options." "You had options," I said. "You just made the wrong ones. Over and over again." Rebecca scoffed. "Wow, this is who you are now, Mr. High and Mighty, because you write code and drink oat milk. You think you're better than us?" "No," I said. "I think I finally understand you." She went quiet. I pulled a folded document from my coat pocket and dropped it on the counter. "That's from my lawyer," I said. "I'm not handling the will, the money, or anything to do with Dad's stuff. I already signed legal papers to make sure of that." My mom's eyes widened. "You what?" "You heard me. I'm not touching a single dime, and I'm not bailing either of you out again. Whatever debts are left, whatever plans you had, figure it out." Rebecca stepped forward. "You can't do that." I just did. The silence was so thick I could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. "You didn't lose a father today," I said. "You lost your safety net. Grieve that if you want." Then I walked out, slow, steady, and not looking back once. 6 months later, I was standing in my own office, overlooking the downtown skyline from the 18th floor. The paint was still fresh. My company's logo hadn't even been etched into the glass door yet. But the servers were running, the pre-orders were sold out, and our analytics dashboard looked like a damn launch graph. We made it. What started as a notepad full of messy code and a few late-night calls turned into a full product line, plant-based wellness and eco-friendly supplements, all tracked through a custom-built logistics app. I'd written myself in a tiny one-bedroom apartment while my ceiling leaked and the neighbors screamed through the walls. Now I had a team, investors, legal backing, partnerships lined up with major suppliers, and not a single cent of it was shared with my family. After the funeral, I followed through like I said I would. Paid the hospital bill in full, quietly, no ceremony, no speech. And after that, I cut the cord entirely. Changed my number, updated my records, transferred what I needed, and erased the rest. I didn't owe them a thing. Not an explanation, not another phone call, not a piece of my success. But the funny thing about bridges you burn? Sometimes people still try to crawl over the ashes. I got the email on a Thursday morning. It came through the company's HR inbox, which I rarely check myself, but I was sipping coffee and happened to be clearing out spam. The subject line caught my eye immediately. Position inquiry. Rebecca, last name. No cover letter, just a one-line message. I'd like to apply for a creative leadership role with your company. I believe I'm the right fit given our shared values and family legacy. Family legacy. I laughed out loud, alone in my office. I sat back in my chair and just stared at the screen for a few seconds. No resume attached, no portfolio, not even a link to a damn Instagram page. Just that one smug, delusional sentence. I forwarded it to my HR lead with a simple note: deny immediately, do not engage. They responded 2 minutes later, already did. Thought you'd want to see it for the laugh. I did. And I saved it too, in a little folder labeled in case I ever missed them. Turns out that wasn't the only attempt. Word spread that my company was getting attention. We'd been featured in a couple of eco-startup blogs, and suddenly I was getting texts from cousins I hadn't spoken to since high school. Hey man, just checking in. So proud of what you're building. Let's catch up sometime. One of them even invited me to a barbecue that weekend. No address, no mention of the last 10 years. Just vibes. I didn't reply. My mom tried to reach me through a mutual connection. A family friend from back home said she wanted to open communication again, said she regretted how things had gone. I said I wished her well and left it at that. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was done. Meanwhile, Rebecca was apparently drowning. The loan she took out in our dad's name, the one she swore was manageable, went into default. The bank had already issued collection warnings. A relative told me she'd started a GoFundMe titled "Surviving After Grief," with a paragraph full of half-truths and buzzwords, painting herself as a struggling artist lost after her father's passing and her brother's emotional abandonment. It got $50 from one of her old high school friends. The comment just said, "Hope things get better." No one else donated. My mom was living in the same house, but she had to rent out the basement just to keep the lights on. I knew because one of the new tenants emailed my company asking if we wanted to sponsor an art pop-up. Rebecca was running from the garage. We declined. Somewhere in the middle of all this, between late-night logistics builds and investor calls from my living room, I met someone, low-key. We crossed paths at a friend's work thing. She was sharp, no fake small talk, asked direct questions, didn't care about titles or buzzwords, just real unfiltered presence. We started talking, nothing heavy, then meeting up, then hanging out more often. She didn't try to fix me or make a show of support. She just showed up, helped me put furniture together when I moved offices, sent food when I got too deep in work, called me out when I acted like sleep was optional. She had her own life, her own space, her own goals, but somehow she still made room, not in a loud way, just reliably. I'm not rushing it, I'm taking it slow, but for the first time I get it. What actual family feels like, not the type that holds history over your head, just someone who shows up without needing to be owed. No lectures, no strings, just peace. I didn't feel bad. I didn't celebrate either. I just stayed busy. Some nights I'd look around my apartment, shelves stocked, inbox full, team group chat buzzing, and I'd realize this is what building your own legacy looks like. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's just yours. They lost me a long time ago. They just didn't realize it until the money ran out.